Welcome to Talking Technology with NCBI Labs, where we believe that technology is the single greatest enabler for people with sight loss and all disabilities. If you are interested in the latest technology news, products, and innovations, then you've come to the right place.
Oh, yes, you have. Hello and welcome to Talking Technology, episode 40 for the 19th of September 2023. It is Speak Like a Pirate Day, International Speak Like a Pirate Day. Now, you could pay me $1 million and I'm not going to be speaking like a pirate on the podcast, unfortunately. Sorry to let you down, but they certainly don't pay me enough for that. But hey, hello, welcome in to Talking Technology. We've got a great show coming up for you over the next hour or so. We've got some really cool stuff to tell you about, including all of the new features in the new iOS 17 that was released yesterday. We'll be talking about that later on. We'll have Talking Technology news. We'll have quick picks, and we will also be telling you all about I think it's fair to call it a bit of a controversy around the latest changes and discussions in the world of Be My Eyes. We'll be telling you all about that in just a bit. But if you do want to get in touch with us over the course of the podcast, if you're joining us on Microsoft Teams, you can send an email to labs@ncbi.ie. You can use the Q&A panel on Microsoft Teams, or you can give us a call if you need tech support at any time. 1-800-911-110. That's 1-800-911-110. But now let's get down to business. Be My Eyes, we had them on the podcast not long ago, actually. And they were telling us about this really cool new tool that they were developing and working on called Be My AI. And Be My AI basically is able to describe in incredible detail images and things like that. You can take a photo or you can share a photo from your photo library, and it can give you just the most incredible detail about what you're looking at or what the photo is. Now, we interviewed the one and only ChatGPT on the podcast here a couple of months ago. And when we did, it said this.
In the future, AI-powered technologies such as facial recognition software and natural language processing could be used to create new assistive technologies that can help people with disabilities to better interact with their environment. For example, AI-powered technologies could be used to develop smart glasses or other wearable devices that can provide real-time audio descriptions of the visual world for people who are blind or have low vision.
And that, I guess, Be My AI was the first iteration of that, and it mentioned their facial recognition. And that leads us to last week when Be My Eyes or Be My AI, the Be My AI tool, started to have a few issues. Due to privacy concerns, the app was no longer able to describe faces. For quite a while before that, it had been blurring faces. But as of last week, basically any photo that contained a face or a person was being outright blocked and wouldn't be described. It would count, let's say, for example, you took a photo of a leaflet and it had a person on it. That wouldn't be described. If you shared maybe a family photo with you guys on the beach or whatever the case may be, it wouldn't be described. Basically, anything with a face would be described. And this caused quite a lot of upset, I think it's fair to say. And we'll talk about that in a moment. There's been statements, there have been articles, there's been a lot to this over the last little while. But we were coming in to this podcast and we were going to talk all about the different issues and what this whole all meant and so on and so forth. But one of the things we were going to do is we were going to show you what happens when you actually do try and get the Be My AI tool to recognize a face. So I would say about an hour and a half ago, as we record this now, Joe made a recording on his phone of trying to use the Be My AI tool to describe an image with a face. And this is the response that we weren't expecting, but this is the response that he got.
Be my AI. The picture shows a young boy having fun riding a pedal go-kart. He is wearing a bright orange jacket with blue shorts and green sneakers. The go-kart is black and blue with large rubber tires. He is steering the go-kart with concentration on his face. In the background, there is another go-kart parked on the grass, and further back there are some buildings and a fence with greenery. The ground appears to be a mix of grass and a paved path. The sky is cloudy, suggesting it might be a cool day.
So we don't know exactly what happened or how all of this happened, but it seems that somewhere over the last little while, Be My AI has just randomly started to work again. We don't know how or what exactly is going on, but something has changed along the way. And to talk about all of these twists, turns and everything, I am joined now by Joe and Mairead. Folks, hello, how are we?
Hi, David.
Hi, David, how are you?
Not bad at all. So, guys, let's start at the beginning. Joe, firstly, do you want to tell us, I guess, what happened here, I guess? Where does all of this start? What started happening last week?
Well, David, you highlighted to me first that there was a bit of a, I suppose, uproar on the likes of X, which used to be Twitter, and Mastodon and these social networks about people trying to use the Be My AI beta service that has been provided. So that's the first thing I'll say. This is a beta program, so it's in test mode, you could call it, until it gets released properly. So, but unfortunately, what happens when you do release a beta out to too many people is, I suppose, some people try and use it. They got the wow factor, which we got there a minute ago, by listening to I took a picture of my little boy on a go-kart, and it gave me some amazing detail, you know. So some vision impaired and blind people got the same kind of great detail that they never got before, and they received this wow factor. But then one day they tried to use the Be My AI beta service again, and it returned a reply saying this picture cannot be analyzed because it contains people. So obviously Be My Eyes and OpenAI were having a conversation, and OpenAI have privacy issues about having people pictures of people sent to their server. So they blocked any pictures with people in them, and you couldn't get descriptions of those pictures. So that is what has been happening in the last few days. But I can understand, I suppose, blind people that have never seen before or never got a description of something like that, we'll say, you know, and then it's taken away from you. It can get very emotional, you know. So when you do get a great product, it gets taken away. There's a lot of emotions involved there. But we do have to understand it is a beta service at the moment until it gets released fully.
For sure. Mairead, you were the one actually who first flagged in one of our meetings here about a week ago that there were actually issues, or that you had started to experience issues with the tool, because I had been aware of it blurring faces for quite a while, but you, I think, were one of the first ones to flag with us that it was actually just outright blocking images. You mentioned that you were using it to kind of, you know, photos of the family, so on and so forth. What was it like for you, I guess, when you started having an issue? What were your kind of first impressions then?
Well, when I started using it at first, like, it was brilliant because, I mean, like, I'm in a lot of WhatsApp groups, especially the family one and things. So, like, it was great for, you know, if I wanted to share a photo from my camera roll to it, it was giving me great descriptions of what was in the image and everything. And then all of a sudden last week when I, you know, did the same thing, especially when some family were abroad, they were putting up loads of photos, and I thought, oh, it'd be great now to get a description of these. But everything seemed to have been blocked when I was sharing from the camera roll. I was just getting a message saying something like, the image has been blocked as it may contain faces or people. So I couldn't get anything. So, and again, like for me, like taking a picture of something really is not really a great option, because it wouldn't be great because there's no guidance or anything for that in the app. So for me, like the main use would be sharing photos from the camera roll.
And
now, even yesterday, for example, it didn't work for me. So it wasn't working. Everything was still blocked out yesterday. But all of a sudden, I tried it just maybe half an hour before the podcast, and I'm getting great descriptions again now of the photos on my camera roll. So it does seem to be resolved, which is really good. And for me, like, it's just a great way of knowing, being able to like comment on photos on the WhatsApp group and things as well. Like, so it's just nice to kind of feel included in the conversations, like, of all the photos that are going up in groups.
For sure. Now, there was an email sent out to Be My Eyes users this morning with updates to their terms of service and privacy policy. There doesn't appear to be massive changes in that related to the Be My AI feature specifically, but for whatever reason, it does seem to be working again now. We don't have any public acknowledgement or information about that at this time, but they acknowledged in a statement yesterday that, as Joe said, this is a beta feature, and they kind of acknowledged that, look, over the next little while, we are going to be fixing and breaking again and fixing and breaking again this functionality. How do you feel about that? Do you think this is do you think the payoff here is really exciting long term? Like, or are you just at a point where you think, if it was taken away again, but you'll have it in a month's time, let's say, do you find that frustrating, or how do you find that experience? Do you think maybe even Be My Eyes maybe opened up the floodgates a bit too wide here? How do you feel about it, Mairead?
Well, yeah, like I think it's, it is still in its early stages. So like everything isn't going to be perfect initially. I mean, you kind of do expect a few issues initially, but if you kind of know a feature isn't working in it, but it will be maybe within the next 4 weeks or whatever, I'd be happy to accept that once you kind of have an update and acknowledgement that this isn't working for now, but we will aim to get it working. Once you kind of know what's going on with it rather than not knowing.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's fair.
Yeah, David, some people don't care about the whole privacy issues. They just care about the end user experience. This would be some users. But I think people have to think about, when you're dealing with this kind of technology, I think people have to think about the jigsaw that's put together before the end user gets the product. So basically the picture gets sent away to a server and it gets processed. OpenAI have lots of regulations to follow now in America and other countries, and they're trying to be very careful and not process people's faces too much, if you know what I mean, or not to hold them anywhere and before processing. So they have to stay alive and stay within regulations before they can send it back and give us a description of it.
Yeah, one of the things I think, or an experience I had at one point with it, was it described someone's hair as messy. And it was an interesting experience because in one sense, look, at least it's being honest, but some people might feel that that's too far, that, the AI shouldn't go that far or whatever. Like, it's hard to know kind of what the line is. And this is almost a societal debate in many ways, Joe, isn't it?
Yeah, no, count themselves lucky. They just said messy hair. I think it came back and told me I was in my 40s or 50s, so it gave me a broad description there. It's supposed to write.
You're a young, good-looking man, I'm sure, Joe.
Yeah. I'm gonna, when it has a little space for ask me a question, I'm gonna go back with a question. How dare you say something like that? You know what I mean? Yeah, I know, I joke. But so to get the Yeah, I know. Look, if you're overly sensitive and you're gonna get a thing like that, yeah, I can see that could hurt someone's feelings if if it comes back with a kind of a oversensitive response or an over-descriptive response on somebody that's negative.
But that's not even just faces. Like, I remember my poor mother, she was well offended when it told her that clothes in the wardrobe were folded haphazardly. And I thought, oh dear, we're going to have a war in the house here. My mother versus Be My Eyes. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, but a few weeks ago, David, it did. I probably would have been happy with the way it was given descriptions. It was saying, this is a picture of two people, the faces are blurred, but then it told me everything else about the picture, which was fine. Like, it said there was two trees in the background and a red car and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't mind not knowing who the faces were, or a full description of them, as long as I got a decent description of the general picture, if you know what I mean.
For sure, yeah. Mairead, on that point, like, do you think like the blurring of faces do you think that's an acceptable compromise? Or once you get, I guess, a wider description of the picture, or for you is the faces a critical part of it?
Not to the extent of like, you know, I might like to know maybe it's a child's face or maybe just the expression on the face, but that's it. You know, I wouldn't really need to know anything else about them, because then you can, you know, sometimes if you're going through a photo, then you can nearly relate, oh, that's, you know, whoever. So
yeah, for sure.
It's just kind of nice to maybe have an image to some degree, but not like a load of detail. But like, as long as there is a very good description of the photo, to be fair, and any text that's in it, I'm happy.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and I think it's one of these ones I feel like at some stage we're going to be discussing this again, somehow or another. But like, what do you feel about it now? Where would you like to see this technology get to? Are you happy with the state of play with it now?
Is that me? I'll take that one, David. Yeah. So, look, if it stayed at this form, I'd be very happy with it. I remember years ago when Microsoft were releasing Scene AI, and just even before that, they had they spoke about AI and real-time AI, and they done promo videos of somebody pointing their camera at maybe a playground, and I said there's a girl playing with a red ball and she's bouncing up and down and all this kind of stuff. But this is the closest that has come to that kind of technology, real-time pictures. I know it takes a little bit to process it, but in a full type of a description, this would be the closest. Sure. Like, sometimes, I suppose, where the emotion has come into it for some people is it gives such a good description of products and things and people that it's liberating for some people, you know.
Yeah,
then,
for sure.
Whereas, you know, you could have a closed product T-shirt or something, and Be My Eyes will tell you that it's a grey T-shirt with white lines going across it, and there's two buttons, and the buttons are navy, and the collar has a white line on it and all this kind of stuff. Whereas if you asked, maybe some humans would just say, that's a great T-shirt.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
That's great.
So that's great. And that's the end of it there. You don't get any more description. And then there is, look, depending on the person, you mightn't bother asking any more questions. That's all. So it is liberating to get all that information and all that detail. So at the moment, I'm quite happy where it is. And hopefully Be My Eyes and OpenAI in their discussions about privacy will meet in the middle, and we'll get, we will be able to access pictures with people in them to probably 90% of a degree. That's a good compromise.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think that point about, you know, people feeling almost liberated by this tool is quite an interesting one, because like there were some people I saw saying, you know, that for the first time they were able to get descriptions of themselves and so on. And it's a really interesting tool, because things like that, they're personal to people. And I think you hit the nail on the head, Joe, when you said, you know, people had it and then it seems like it was being taken away. And that's always hard. You're almost, in times like that, you're almost better off not having it in the first place, because it's going to really frustrate you to have it taken away. But it looks like, at least for now, it's back in some form, which is good. We'll have to wait and see whether that's a long-term thing or what the compromises look like long-term. But for now, a good thing, I think it's fair to say, Mairead, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah.
Brilliant. Alrighty. Well, look. Yeah, go ahead,
David. What about useful use cases? Do you want to speak about any of those? Have you used it for anything else apart from pictures with people in them? Is there any useful use cases on your end?
Yeah, look, there are going to be tons of useful use cases for this. Like one of the ones I used recently is I just found it better than using, seeing AI for things like, for example, letters and just getting information. And one of the ones, and I'm sure now we talk about privacy, but look, there comes a point where you throw privacy out the window. One of the things I did was I had a question about a pay slip, and I showed it like a section of the pay slip that I had a question about, and I asked it to just explain that area of it to me in simple English, and it worked perfectly. Like, and I know that's a niche use case, and maybe it's not what it was designed for. But when you get documents like this sometimes where, they can be, they can often be, spreadsheets, or they can be whatever way you want to look at it, or it might be very graphically intensive, like pieces of promotional material are often very graphics heavy that something like Seeing AI might not deal with particularly well. I found it brilliant in those circumstances,
Yeah, same here. I found it brilliant for receipts. I've also found it really good for reading the interface of the computer and telling me the layout of the screen, especially when my screen reader has gone totally silent. So you could say it's almost a text support tool in a way. For reading food products, it's really good for reading food products. Seems to recognize food packaging and products better than other OCR apps. I suppose it just gives you that total picture of it, as in what's on the packet and some nutritional information and that kind of stuff. I don't know whether it grabs it from the internet as well as analysing the picture, if you know what I mean, but it does a great job at food products. I suppose general scenes, as in taking a picture of an area or a landscape. It's really good for giving you a feedback on what a landscape looks like. So if you're on holidays or you went to a park area and you wanted a general sketch of what it looks like in your brain, that's a general image. That they're the kind of things I've used it for. And I don't know about yourself, Mairead. Have you any new ones there in your own toolbox that you can remember you might have used it for?
I'm fairly new to the beta, really, because I only kind of got it maybe 2 weeks ago. So for me, so far, it's mainly, we'll say, receipts and post, and like just photos from the camera roll. Really, is mainly what I've been kind of using it for.
Has
up
it
to now,
replaced
anyway.
Seeing AI for you, Mairead?
Sorry?
Has it replaced Seeing AI for you?
It has in ways, I think, actually, yeah, because it is more, it does seem to pick up more. It picks up more detail, I think. So now I still use Seeing AI to a degree as well. But yeah, I could nearly see this app replacing Seeing AI, maybe.
Isn't that
I think it will make Seeing AI up its game, won't it?
Yeah,
I think that, and
it definitely will.
There's competition there for sure. Seeing AI has been the go-to for so long that now there's competition in the game, which is really cool to see. Yeah, you mentioned there landscapes, Joe. Once I first got access to the beta a while back, one of the things we did with it was I took a photo from, say, each corner of the backyard. And I was able to like ask questions, and it gave me just like it was like just a map, like a questionnaire on a map. You could ask, what direction are the bins? What direction, is all these different things, and it was just incredible. Like for someone, who maybe goes on holidays or whatever and just wants to get an idea of things like hotel rooms. It's incredible,
Yeah, incredible, really is.
For sure. Well, guys, listen, thanks so much for telling us about it. Mairead, you've been on the podcast 2 weeks in a row, so thank you so much for joining us. I know it's your day off today.
Thanks,
as well.
David. Thank you.
But when you were so passionate about it, we said we'd get you on, so thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, it's a fascinating one. And look, these conversations, I'm sure, these societal conversations about, privacy and so on, these are going to happen in time. We're going to have these debates as society, really. But for now, at least, it appears that the Be My AI tool is back up and running and describing faces, which is really cool. We'll be hearing more about that later on in the show as well from the statements from Be My Eyes in Talking Technology News. So do hang around for that. But now let's talk about iOS 17. iOS 17, it was released yesterday by Apple. We had the Wonderlust event last week, and it was announced there that on Monday, the 18th, which is yesterday, they would be releasing iOS 17, iPadOS 17, watchOS 10, and all the other operating systems to the public, and that they did. And there are a few new accessibility features that are in the new update. We'll talk about a few of them in a moment, but just to let you know, I have been testing out the beta on this for a little while, and I'm happy enough to say that at least on my phone, I'm currently using a 12 Pro. It's been decently stable with VoiceOver, actually. I haven't had any major hiccups with it. If you're a VoiceOver user, I'd feel relatively confident in saying you're safe to update. Always good maybe to wait for one or two updates to pass before you do, but I haven't had any major VoiceOver hiccups with it, to be fair. There are some new haptic gestures and stuff when you're doing things like closing apps, but generally it's quite a stable release. But outside of VoiceOver, there are some really cool new features in the product. And Joe, you're going to tell us about a few of these, starting off with Siri. Siri is getting some improvements in iOS 17. What's new?
Yes, David. Siri's getting a few new improvements. I like to use Siri a lot. One of the biggest changes actually is the ability just to say the word Siri instead of Hey Siri, when you're using hands-free. This is a good thing, I suppose, in a lot of ways. It's reduces saying an extra word and that kind of stuff. Yeah. But in some ways, it can be a bad thing as well, because if you're having a conversation about that, about Siri with somebody or whatever, it will activate the virtual assistant and try and come back with a command. But that's one of the major changes. You don't have to say the word "hey" before the main word.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny. I actually found since that upgrade, so you've got a few options. You can either have it off, you can have it listen for Hey Siri, or you can have it listen for Siri and Hey Siri. And I actually found, and I don't know whether this was your experience, Joe, because I know you have a HomePod as well, that I found myself using Siri much more when I could just say Siri. I found myself much more inclined to use Siri compared to Alexa, actually, on the HomePod, when I could just say Siri instead of Hey Siri.
I haven't had that experience yet, but I can see what you mean. Yeah, there's a little less friction with using the word. So it's one word instead of two. So yeah, and I think Google might have to follow suit soon. You know what I mean?
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. What else have we got there, Joe?
Yeah, so as we were saying last week on the watch, obviously it's got a new neural engine, and a lot of some Siri commands are you can do them offline, so it makes Siri commands a lot faster, and dictation is supposed to be 25% more accurate as well on the watch because of this. So you can start workouts and ask for the time and set timers and alarms and that kind of stuff. But one of the other bigger ones that I'd mention is some of the new voices. Well, like this came out in the recent iOS, you could set the Siri voice as your voiceover voice, but that was it. You weren't able to do much else with it. Now you can actually speed up the voice and slow it down. So whatever your preference is, to speak it really slow or speak nice and fast.
Have you set your Siri to 100 yet, Joe?
Not to 100 yet, no. To 80. Enough. Not too bad on 80.
Well, 80, that's fair play. Yeah, fair play.
Yeah, sounds good. There's two great Irish voices on it, Moira and I forget what the male one is called, but it's quite good as well.
The
It sounds
Siri
a little
ones
bit
don't
similar
have
to
names, as far as I know. I've always thought the male one sounded a bit like Derek Mooney, though.
Yeah, slightly, yeah, or one of the RTE voiceovers that introduces the next program, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
So, a little bit like that, yeah. It's a typical Irish kind of maybe newsreader voice or something like that. But yeah, they sound quite good as a voiceover voice. The other thing was you can actually speed up the Siri voice as well when it's answering your back commands. That wasn't possible in the previous version, so you can now make Siri speak a little bit faster when it's speaking back to you or giving you information from a search on the internet or that kind of thing. So that's the other new feature that I liked. And the HomePod then as well, they added new Siri features to AirPlay. So this will allow you to use some external music subscription services like Spotify. So once you AirPlay, say Spotify to your HomePod Mini or HomePod, you'll be able to say Siri next song or Siri play whatever the song name and artist is, that kind of stuff.
That's really
so
cool.
So that's going to be good. They're allowing third parties in instead of Apple Music slightly, and they're opening the circle a little bit.
That's good to see.
Yeah, and there is going to be the ability to mute or unmute calls on the HomePod as well, and the hang up is working better now as well. So you can hang up calls better in this version of the update as well. I see it's available. I was looking through my phone in the settings, and I see hang up is in the settings. You can turn it on or off, toggle it on or off on the phone. So there's a couple of new features, and I really liked.
There you go. Yeah, there's some really cool new ones on the Siri side. I think we have JP there as well. And JP, you were telling us about a really cool new feature that's really designed to improve eye health, in particular for kids.
That's right, David. Yeah, there's a brand new feature available now in iOS 17 called Screen Distance. And what it is effectively, it's a new tool that's being developed by Apple to reduce eye strain and promote better eye health. It's primarily designed for children, but Apple are saying that it could be applicable for anyone really who wants to, reduce any eye strain when using their devices for long periods. And it's available in iOS 17 for your iPhone and iPad OS 17 if you have an iPad. I think it really comes in the back of, given the length of time that we're spending more and more time these days on our smartphones. And, sometimes we don't even realize it. I know that there's the option, of course, to check our screen time and get updates on that. And sometimes you can get a worrying message from Apple saying, on your iPhone saying that your screen time is up, 30% this week. And so this is a way of us managing that and trying to reduce eye strain. In terms of how it works and how to actually turn it on, I was testing this now. I only installed iOS 17 on my iPhone last night, but I was testing it this morning, and it's fairly straightforward, the process for enabling screen distance. So we go into the settings app and we go into screen time, and then we go down to screen distance, where it says screen distance reduce eye strain, and we select this. And it's at this point then we're given some information around the screen distance feature. And it'll actually tell you that your iPhone or iPad should be held at a suggested distance of 30 centimeters from your eyes. And then with screen distance toggled on, you're going to be prompted with a message then or an alert if you're not doing that, basically. So it's only available on phones with Face ID, I should point out. So for those with a home button, it will not work. But for those phones you have with a Face ID, then it'll prompt you or alert you with a message if you're not doing that. So if you're not actually holding your iPhone or your iPad at that distance of 30 centimeters from your eyes. So it's quite a kind of welcome feature. I say primarily aimed at reducing eye strain in children, but I think this is a wider application for anyone, really.
Yeah, it's an interesting feature, especially I think at times for people who have low vision. We can tend to, and I include myself in this, to hold phones quite close to our faces. Like I'm using, I use VoiceOver primarily now, but before I would have held the phone quite close to my face, using a magnifier or whatever the case may be. So it is definitely an issue. But even this is one that's really, it's preventative measure to try and help even those who are fully sighted. And I guess that leads me to the question for yourself, JP. You've got relatively decent sight, but will you be turning this feature on for yourself?
I turned it on, and you know what? I was on the train into work this morning, and sometimes I don't even realize it. Like so many of us, I'll have my iPhone too close to my eyes, and I'll be looking at it. I do wear contacts, David, or wear glasses, without which now I'd still go a little bit doing things like if it was certainly driving, or if it was even like watching TV and all that. But I would certainly be inclined to keep it on. And you know, my children are quite young now, but when they do eventually have smartphones, which will be a few years down the line, I think it'd be a feature that I consider enabling on their phones when they do eventually have them. That's
interesting. Yeah, it's one that I think maybe for people who have particularly low or no vision, mightn't be of much benefit. But if you have kids, maybe you're a visually impaired parent listening to this, it might be one that's worth turning on. So good to know that it's there for sure.
Absolutely.
So thanks for telling us about that one, JP. There was one other really cool new accessibility improvement in iOS 17 and iPadOS 17, and this was Assistive Access. So what Assistive Access does is it puts your phone basically into a separate mode that has everything in a simplified interface, is the best way I can describe it. So it limits the amount of buttons in the interface. It limits, the amount of action. So for example, if you were to go into the camera, instead of having, focus adjustment and all of these, fancy things, it'll literally just have a take photo button, for example. Or in the calls, instead of having the dial pad, or instead of having, search contacts, all of these things, it'll just have your preferred contacts you can touch and then you call. It's a much simpler interface. And crucially, maybe for those who have low vision, everything is huge. And I mean huge. It's really quite large. It's a nice, simple interface. It does work with VoiceOver, interestingly enough. You can't turn VoiceOver on or off when you're in the setting, but you can turn it on and then go into the setting, and that setting will stay on then. So it puts you in a kind of a walled garden, so you can't do a whole lot of damage with it, really. But yeah, it's quite a cool one. It's going to be really of benefit to those who might not need the full iOS experience with all of the apps and settings and all those things. If you just want a simpler interface, maybe, whether you're using VoiceOver or maybe you've got low vision, it's quite a nice experience and one that might be of benefit to some people. Also, worth noting that Siri does work in this mode, but last time I tried it, it's weirdly kind of inaccessible in a funny little way. The Siri button, so the microphone button in Siri, isn't labeled in Assistive Access. It does still work. There's only one button there, really, so you just double tap it and it will then listen. But it's one to be aware of. But yeah, Assistive Access, it's a cool feature. JP, have you tried it out yet?
Yeah, I've been trying it out only a little bit now, as of really this morning, and I'm impressed. I think it could be a particularly useful tool for maybe someone who's maybe slightly old, or maybe someone who's not very tech savvy and they want a more simple interface that is just a bit more straightforward to navigate. It reminds me a little bit, David, of, I'm not sure if we're aware of it here, the likes of Synaptic software. I think Mairead, you've been playing a little bit about that the Synaptic software on a Samsung phone, or something like Dolphin Guide. So the interface
is a good comparison, actually.
Yeah, it's a bit like that. What were your thoughts, David, on the apps? So I heard that there was you have your unoptimized apps, so to speak. So there'd be apps that wouldn't be your native, your stock apps on your iPhone. So they might not feature extra large, but I know there's a big back button there, so it's very obvious how to get back. So an app that mightn't be optimized, it would work as normal. when you enter it.
Yes.
But there's a big back button at least to get you back to the
It's like a
the
home
menu.
button, but there's no gestures involved.
Do you envisage more apps but being made available and supposed to be optimized within Assistive Access? That could be helpful as well.
It was interesting you bring it up, because this is something I thought about when I first tried it. I think I would hope that Apple will bring more potential apps to this mode, because like, even if someone isn't particularly tech savvy, hey, they might want to send an email, or they might want to, do different things. There are things that, people might want to do, listen to the radio, for example, or things like that. But I was also thinking that there's a great opportunity here in some ways for third-party developers to create these really simple apps to work well in these interfaces, using that kind of standardized design. There's opportunities for companies to create, a fully featured app, yes, but also maybe have a simpler app that might be more beneficial. It's interesting now, because now that Apple have done it, they've kind of signaled that, hey, this might be worth exploring, and maybe this is something that hasn't been considered before, but maybe some developers will start developing more simplified apps now, like even, can you imagine something like a simplified version of the likes of Seeing AI or Be My Eyes? It's there's some great potential.
It's a great point, David. Yeah, I think there's vast potential with Assistive Access, isn't there? It's early days yet.
It is early days yet. I hope that this feature gets built upon, but we'll have to wait and see. Joe, have you got a chance to try Assistive Access yet?
I haven't tried it yet, David, but I am looking forward to giving it a go and recommending it to some service users that I know would like a simpler interface on the phone. Less options is always good for some people,
for sure,
and less buttons. So, as I said, the music app is going to be a lot less complicated, and you'll only have maybe 3 or 4 different buttons. Your play, pause, next, rewind, that kind of thing. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to giving it a go.
For sure. JP, do you want to give us a quick description before we move on about the setup process for this feature?
Setup for Assistive Access. Yeah, one thing I would say, I'm not going to say it was complicated. It wasn't. There's a few little steps though. I think it's just to
it is tedious. I think it's fair.
No, it isn't. It isn't. So you have when you're setting up Assistive Access, it's going into the accessibility settings in your iPhone, and then going down to Assistive Access, which is under a general section there. When you start off the first time, you have to basically configure it. So choose your applications, which you want to be added to it's either going to be a row or a grid. Now, I chose a grid. You can choose row if you wish. I just chose the grid, I suppose, setup or layout in the app setup. And then you have applications you're going to choose. So that's calls, camera, messages, photos. Now, I put in other apps like I put in my banking app, I put in AIB just for testing, and WhatsApp and so forth. And once I did that, then these apps then become available in either your row or grid setup, whichever one you choose. One thing I didn't do, I kind of rushed through it just because I was really keen to try it out. I didn't read up all the setup instructions, and having started Assistive Access and having been just being accessing that on my phone, I didn't know how to get out of it. I realized I just kind of figured it. Yeah, I triple pressed the side button and it brought me out straight away. Now the next time I'm going in to Assistive Access, I just start it. I don't have to configure it again. There's a few little bits of setting it up, and it really comes down to customization. So which apps that you want to make available in Assistive Access. You'll notice then, as I say, the unoptimized apps. So things like my banking app, it brought me into the app just as it would on the standard setup on my phone. Whereas other apps like calls and camera, etc., it would be more customized to Assistive Access. But having set up, I just going back to the previous point, great potential, I think, for people who want a simple interface on their iPhone. I think it's a great addition now, accessibility feature in iOS 17 that Apple have brought out.
For sure. One final thing I'll add before we move on is there's one feature in Assistive Access that really, really impressed me and should just be a standardized feature, right? And that is in the Messages app. You can touch a message and just totally independently, whether you voice over on or off or whatever, it'll read the message to you. That is so handy.
Is nice. That is nice.
That is really, really handy. And I think we should start a campaign for that to be like just a standard feature because I really loved it. It's a nice, simple interface. But yeah, a really, really cool setup. And as JP said, one that will hopefully be built on in the next little while. So JP, Joe, thanks so much for telling us about all those new cool features in iOS 17. If you have had experience with iOS 17, or maybe you've got questions on how to upgrade or anything along those lines, you can always send us an email to labs@ncbi.ie, or you can give us a call 1-800-911-110. That's 1-800-911-110. There's some really cool stuff in there. I've particularly been enjoying just the little bits like the home widget. I can control lights and stuff from my home screen now, and it's a really, really cool stuff. So some great features in there. Let us know what you're using, and tell us all about it. But for now, let's move on to Talking Technology News, shall we?
This is Talking Technology News.
With your latest Talking Technology News, I'm JP Corcoran. Scientists have developed an artificial intelligence capable of detecting medical conditions, including some eye diseases, using retinal imaging. While tools like this have existed before, RedFound is the first to be trained using self-supervised learning in the same way as ChatGPT. The AI learned by looking at 1.6 million retinas, which gave it an idea of how retinas look, and then scientists introduced samples with diseases to teach it the difference. So far, the results have reportedly been positive. On a scale where 0.5 represents a model that performs no better than a random prediction, and 1 represents a perfect model that makes an accurate prediction each time, it scored between 0.822 and 0.943 for a diabetic retinopathy. This is really impressive and cool to see. Who knows if we'll see AI diagnosis at scale for eye conditions, but it's certainly an impressive achievement. Be My Eyes have been getting some backlash after the beta version of their AI tool started blocking images with faces. Privacy concerns led to the move, which seems to be coming from OpenAI, who provided the detailed image descriptions used by the app. In a statement issued yesterday, Be My Eyes said AI is a huge new tool requiring new guardrails, and right now society is in the process of inventing the right kind of protections. Be My AI runs on OpenAI's GPT-4 model, and we both must follow an emerging patchwork of national and international laws. We're trying to be legally diligent and responsible about privacy, regulation, and user experience, while strongly representing our community's desire to know as much about the world around them as possible, including faces. These are complex issues that we're committed to working on with our partners. The full statement is available on the Be My Eyes website. Emotions are high on the subject, but we can only hope that a working solution is found before the public launch of Be My AI. On a slightly lighter note, Be My Eyes might not be able to describe faces, but it can certainly help you build your Lego helicopter. Lego has been added to the specialized help section in the Be My Eyes app, and they seem to be able to help with everything Lego. According to Be My Eyes, you can get assistance unboxing a new Lego set, reading building instructions, identify the colors and characteristics of Lego blocks, video assistance while building your new favorite Lego set, navigate www.lego.com and discover new Lego sets in their online store. Learn more about Lego products and services, and much more. It's a cool story and great to see the world of Lego becoming more accessible. With Lego Braille now on general sale and this new Be My Eyes partnership, it's been a great time for blind Lego fans recently. Finally, for now, a quick reminder that we published extra content last week for Apple's Wonderlist event. Apple announced the iPhone 15, 15 Pro, Apple Watch Series 9, and Ultra 2. so there are plenty of exciting new products on the way. There's a bonus episode of Talk Technology on the podcast feeds on YouTube. We've got extensive coverage in our newsletter, as well as a recap video, which is also available over on the NCBI Labs YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe and sign up to all our platforms so you never miss NCBI Labs content. That's it for now, but if you've got news you want to share, please email labs@ncbi.ie to get in touch. For now, it's back to David.
Thanks, JP. Are you much of a Lego man?
I love it, David. Massive Lego fan. Yeah.
Have you built like many sets and stuff?
I have, and I was recently in the Lego store on Grafton Street in town with my little ones, and they're mad into it as much as I was when I was a young fella. And the sets are incredible. I walked out thinking, I walked in rather thinking, I'll just get one or two small things. I think I ended up spending a lot more than I anticipated. Bags of Lego, walking out with bags of Lego in each hand. So I'm a big fan.
That's unreal. I love seeing, those YouTube videos with these really just, these incredible, elaborate, like Lego designs and builds and stuff. It's really, really cool to see. And it's great now that visually impaired people are going to be able to do this too in many ways.
Absolutely. It's a really welcome addition now. So credit to Be My Eyes for adding that specialised help section.
Absolutely.
I suppose recognising that a lot of people do enjoy building Lego as well. And
and allowing and recognizing that Lego is also for people who are visually impaired. It doesn't necessarily have to be just for sighted people. Recently they announced that they will be selling Lego Braille for general
I heard
sale.
that. Yeah, and that was an initiative from the library originally. They had Lego that were sending it to schools, and now it's being made more widely available. So I think it's fantastic.
For sure. We've discussed Lego Braille on the podcast here before, but it's brilliant just that this stuff is becoming more widely available, and in this kind of whole Be My Eyes thing, it just adds to that, which is it's great to see. How do you feel about RetFound and this retina imaging setup? 1.6 million retinas trading this thing. Pretty cool stuff, isn't it?
It is cool. Yeah, this is pioneering research. I love hearing this. So it's such a case, isn't it, of like prevention over cure. So it's great. It's all about early detection, and it's another, I suppose, way in which we're seeing the use of artificial intelligence being used for health benefits now. So I think it's great. It's a very welcome addition. Yeah,
it's like AI has really come such a long way in the last year, hasn't it? It's insane.
It has. You know what? You couldn't go back years where this would have been science fiction, wouldn't it? Like, I remember.
Yeah, for sure.
Looking at movies, there was an old movie I remember watching called Gallic, I think it was called, and it was trying to predict, when someone is born, their chances of getting, heart disease or certain health conditions, and this is effectively what's being done through AI. So it's a science fiction becoming now
reality.
Science reality, exactly. Yeah. So it's very impressive.
Stuff. JP, thank you so much for telling us
about
that. And those Wanderlust clips and stuff like that. Do check out our podcast newsletter and recap video from last week. They're available on ncbi.ie, the NCBI YouTube channel, and all of the different platforms too. So be sure to check all of that out as well. But now let's move on to Quick Picks.
It's time for NCBI Labs Quick Picks.
And Joe, you have the smart speaker to end all smart speakers here. A smart speaker with not one, but two assistants involved. Tell us about this little thing.
Yeah, well, JBL are bringing out a speaker with two virtual assistants. So this smart speaker is going to have the Amazon Alexa and the Google Assistant on it. So you'll be able to say either the magic A word or the Hey Google, if you know what I mean. So you'll be able to say either to the speaker and get commands back. So you can either play music on it, check the weather, set a timer and all that good stuff. It's going to be called JBL Authentics, and it's not released right now. It'll be out in December the 17th is the release date I've heard. So I've read a couple of articles on TechCrunch and stuff like that, and it sounds really good. And there's going to be 3 different versions. I think it's Authentics 200, 300, and 500, something like that. Anyway, so when it comes maybe a week closer, we'll bring it up again, and we'll have another chat about it. But I think this is going to be really cool.
Hopefully we get to try one of them. It's really cool to see like different smart assistants being integrated into different things. Like I know one of the things they've done quite heavily on the Google Nest side is they've started integrating them into, I think they call it Nest Wi-Fi. So it's basically like a Wi-Fi router, but it has the speaker built in. And I know it's been a similar setup with Siri on some of the Ecobee thermostats. That they just have these things built in now, so it's really cool. It's a great kind of time to be into smart home stuff, because there's so much.
You've seen it been built into a lot more stuff. Even TVs, Samsung TVs have the Google Assistant and the Amazon Alexa as well. So so it's in loads of products, and you're seeing it more and more. I think that's the way things are going now. People like to speak to their devices, even the Sky has Hey Sky, or Hello Sky, I think it is. And you can ask for a channel. So, yeah, that's the way things are going now.
Yeah, and I think it's a great recognition in many respects as well that some of the smart assistants are better at some things and others are better at other things. That way you can ask for, whichever assistant is going to handle whichever task better. I don't think we ever expected this. JP was talking about science fiction there. I mean, this is the ultimate science fiction. We're just talking to things now, and we basically do have virtual assistants. It's
that's true,
cool, isn't it? And our other quick pick for this week is one that hasn't been released yet either, but one I'm really excited about, and that is the Flick Twist. The Flick Twist is a little dial that can control stuff in your smart home. So you can stick this dial to things like your fridge or your wall or whatever, and the dial can adjust things like the volume of your smart speaker. It can adjust the brightness of your lights, maybe. You can press the middle of it, and it'll run actions just like a flick button would, so you can run routines and stuff like that. We've done some content before on the flick buttons, but this is the next generation of that product now. So it has 4 potential actions. So you can push, double push, twist, and twist and push. So yeah, it's going to be a really cool one to play around with. I've heard that they're quite tactile, which is brilliant, and they have like 12 options, as in like 12 kind of points on a clock, if you will. So yeah, it's one of these ones that could be quite exciting. There's things like scene blending and stuff like that in there too. So loads of really cool features apparently coming to the Flick Twist. It's available for orders now, but it isn't shipping yet. So probably wait until it's just readily shipping. But I can't lie, I've gone against all best practice advice. I've gone and ordered one, Joe.
Excellent. This sounds like a great product, David. I'm really looking forward to hearing what it's like when you get it.
Yeah, we'll have to do an article or something for the newsletter. But it should be a really, really good product. I have high hopes for it. But yeah.
I think 3 actions was probably not enough on the buttons. With this twist, it sounds like you're going to be able to mix up a lot more actions and maybe control a lot more devices and things. So that's always a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Some great potential in it. But that is it, I guess, now for our episode 40 of Talking Technology. Loads, we've fit loads into the last hour, from Be My Eyes to iOS to all the tech news and quick picks. So thank you so much for joining us. We hope you've enjoyed the show over the last hour or so. And as always, if you want to get in touch with us, the email you need is labs@ncbi.ie. That's labs@ncbi.ie. And the number is 1-800-911-110. We're going to be back in 2 weeks' time. Sorry, you can't have a bonus episode every week. We're going to be back in 2 weeks' time with another episode of Talking Technology. So we'll be looking forward to that, and we hope you will too. So thank you so much for listening. And for now, from us, have a good one, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Talking Technology podcast with NCBI Labs. If you would like to support our show, you can visit donate.ncbi.ie. The NCBI Labs Talking Technology podcast is proudly sponsored by IA Labs, the market leader in the provision of digital accessibility services.